What's up, grinders? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be watching this video from this YouTuber, very small channel, Chinese is Hard, even for native speakers, Chinese episode 1. Now, the reason I want to watch this is I've seen a lot of discussion down in my comment section about what is the more difficult language for an English speaker. Is it Chinese? Is it Japanese? And I've noticed, like, because I don't speak Japanese, so I realistically can't say, but I've seen Japanese people, or people who are learning Japanese say, oh, Chinese is easier because it's got less grammar, or the grammar is more simple, like it doesn't have tenses and stuff. When actually, for me personally, I think languages that have like complex grammar aren't necessarily more difficult. I'll give you an example what I mean, okay? So I've learned a bit of Latin. I don't remember much of it, but I do know like how the case system works. I know how like there's various different conjugation systems based on, you know, the types of nouns, etc. That stuff never really tripped me up too much. I knew with just time and automation, I would be able to spit out those sentences just like I do with Esperanto, okay? The difficult part for me realistically for a language is not the grammar but the way of thinking. And I've found with Chinese, even though its grammar is in a lot of ways way more simple because it doesn't have conjugations and tenses are, well, they don't exist in the standard English sense. They have like completion markers and stuff. I find it to be more difficult in that way because therefore the way of thinking within the language is quite different to English or Esperanto or Latin, you know, these other languages, or Spanish. Like, for example, Spanish to me is just basically a more complex version of Esperanto. Like, that's pretty much it. Like, sure, I don't speak it yet. I understand it. But, like, I can see the way of thinking across languages is pretty much the same for all these languages as opposed to Chinese, where the way of thinking is quite different. Now, maybe this is the same with Japanese. Like, I know you change the word order and stuff, but even word order changes don't trip me up that much. It's just literally how they conceptualize the world. Anyway, I just wanted to give my opinions on that before we start this video. Let's begin. Oh, by the way, I just turned on subtitles because I did watch about 30 seconds of her video before, and I kind of noticed that she does have a heavy Chinese accent. It's not a problem for me, because, you know, my friends, I've got lots of friends who are Chinese and members of my family, so I'm used to it, but I don't know how you guys are going to go. In fact, let me know down in the comment section. What else did I want to say? Oh yeah, I just want to tell you I'm basically an intermediate level in Chinese, so you know where I'm at if you're just randomly landing on this video.
A lot of people are learning Chinese right now, and almost everyone says the same thing. Chinese is impossible. But here is the honest part that I would like to share in my video. I am Chinese. It's my native language. I started using it when I was 5, and now in my early 30s.
She started using it when she was 5? Does she mean the written form of the language? Or she literally learnt Chinese from 5 years old? I'm just kind of curious, because maybe this would answer the question for why she feels it's a difficult language.
I still want to say this out loud. Chinese is hard, even for me. Not because we are all bad at languages, but because Chinese is built differently. Today, I will share what I have seen, what I have lived, and why Chinese feels so difficult, especially if you learned languages like French or English first. And if I miss anything, please add it in the comments. Before we talk about what's special about Chinese, let's talk about what's universal. Every human learns their first language the same way. You understand first, and then you speak.
I'm a little bit worried right now. We're gonna get a crashing clip, and then I'm gonna crashing. Please do not. Please don't. Because, like, as soon as someone talks about comprehensible input in a YouTube video these days, they have to pull that ancient, like, random clip. You know the one I'm all talking about, right? Where he's standing up there on the stage and he's talking about, let's just see.
Before you can write anything, you can already communicate. Linguists sometimes call this comprehensible input.
Probably the best kept secret in the...
Not again. Not again. Okay. Oh man, if you don't understand why I'm crashing out right now, I've seen this clip in the last 5+ videos. I don't know what it is. You know, if I was him, he could be making bank right now. He should just remake this exact same video, obviously like higher quality and stuff, because this is like all blurry and shit, and just do it in different locations. You could have one on the beach with him in a bikini saying the exact same words, one on the summit of Everest, one in a fucking desert valley, one in space, whatever. You know, it could be fucking scuba diving saying the same shit. Then sell that shit to a stock fucking footage website. Boom! Bank, man. Every single YouTuber freaking out there who talks about languages wants your clip, my dude, and that just adds some diversity. Bro, contact me. I'll select the locations, we'll figure this shit out. I'm just sick of looking at this one old ancient goddamn clip that was made on the VHS that was probably recorded over the ring.
We acquire language in one way, and only one way. when we understand messages.
Man, I've almost memorized this shit. Okay, normally people cut it off after this point.
We call this comprehensible input.
Yep, that's
we
where...
acquire language when we understand
Oh god, we got the extended edition, come on!
what people tell us, not how they say it, but what they say, or when we understand what we read.
And that applies to every language. But in this video, I want to mention that, well, Chinese starts to feel unfair. In French, if you hear
Chinese is unfair, okay.
a word, you can usually spell it if you know the rules.
I don't know about French. Is that true, guys? If you know the rules of French and you hear a word, can you spell it? Because I've done the tiniest bit of French and I just remember there was like double the letters for each word, like how it actually sounds. But I get what she's trying to point out here, and it's true, okay? Like, they're phonetic languages when they're in their written form. Chinese is not.
That's why French students do dictation practice, because you are training a sound to writing system. However, in Chinese, we also do dictation in school. The teacher says a word and we write it down. But what we are training is not how it sounds equals how it's written. What we are training is memory, visual memory. I want to put it in a dramatic way because it shows the difference clearly. Imagine someone speaks both English and Chinese. He has an accident. Unfortunately, he loses memory.
Ah, so he was trying out the T-bone method. If you don't know what that is, look it up on my channel.
And when he wake up, he can still speak English, but his Chinese is gone. This is what I have watched from a documentary. Even it's not a scientific claim for everyone, it's an illustration of how Chinese can be stored differently in the brain. Because Chinese characters are...
I'm not a linguist. I don't know if the language is actually stored differently in the brain or not. Like, I can't answer that question. I'm just a dude who learns languages. For the linguists who do follow me, let me know down in the comment section if languages are stored. Like, I know different parts of the brain are used for different parts of a language, but I don't know if, like... Yeah, I don't even know how to phrase that goddamn question.
Are not just letters that represent sounds. They are symbols. And when you write Chinese, your brain often records a shape, a structure, sound strokes, one line, one curve, one angle. In dictation, we don't retrieve sound to spelling. What we retrieve is sound, mental image, and Chinese character. That's why Chinese can feel like learning thousands of tiny patterns, not the words. I had a moment in Paris that made this click for me. I was at the Guimet Museum. I saw some old Chinese characters. It's very ancient, from a distant dynasty. I could read them. And an English native speaker nearby asked me. He was shocked. He asked me, how can you still understand something written so long ago?
This is actually, I had a kind of similar experience with my wife when we went to Vietnam. There were some old temples there. And for those who don't know Vietnamese, a long time ago, they actually used Chinese characters. And I remember seeing them all up on the walls and stuff. And I just randomly asked my wife, like, do you have any idea what any of those mean? She's like, yeah, I can read them. And I was like, and I remember it was like a really ancient temple. And I was like, Jesus, okay. And then again, when we were in China looking at, things that are over 1,000 years old, she was able to read them. And this is not just due to the fact that they use the same characters because they have evolved over time. It's also due to the fact that they study classical Chinese while in school. It'd be like us studying... It's kind of like us studying Shakespearean English, but like an even older version.
At first, I didn't even know how to answer because to me, it felt normal. It's so natural. But later, I went home and I thought about it. And I realized something beautiful. A symbol culture lasts longer than a sound culture. China is huge. Historically, one mountain can separate accents so much that people cannot understand each other.
That is so goddamn true in China. So true. You go from one province to another and your comprehension just drops to fucking zero sometimes.
Pronunciation changes over centuries. Dialects change and tones change, but the character stays. Even if the sound shifts through time, the meaning attached to the symbol stays surprisingly stable.
This is the same when it gets used across languages, like for example in Cantonese or in Japanese, when they've written it. I can kind of figure out the meaning because, like, obviously the meaning is still the same. Obviously, sound pronunciation is different, though.
That's why Chinese writing has this strange power. It can survive geography, dialects, and time. This also explains something many people don't realize. Chinese kids spend a massive part of childhood doing, like, handwriting drills, memorizing characters, dictation, reciting classical poetry. We are not just learning vocabulary. We are training a system, which means we train our eyes, and our memory, and also the symbols.
I assume it would have some impact if you're basically memorizing thousands of little patterns. Like, that must make you a better visual learner in some ways.
Recognize the symbols. And even if people don't consciously notice it, this kind of language shapes how we think. There is a famous idea in Chinese culture, which is 眼见为实，听为虚. Seeing is truth, hearing is uncertain. That sounds philosophical, but it connects to language. A written character is stable. A sound can change meaning with tone, accent, context. So we value what is visible, what is concrete, what can be proven. This even shows up in relationships. If your partner is Chinese, you might notice they
Okay, let's find out, because obviously, we're talking about I love you, okay.
may not say, I love you at all.
No, she just says she tolerates me, but I'm pretty sure that's got nothing to do with symbol versus sound.
Often. It's not that they don't feel it. It's that emotionally, words can feel light.
Yeah, my wife has actually said this before. I remember ages ago, like, I randomly said, you know, I love you or whatever. Sounds so fucking cringe when I'm saying it on YouTube. I love you guys. But anyway, like, I did say it to her, and it's kind of like just something you say as an Australian English speaker. I'm going to add Australian now because I don't know how this transfers across English speaking countries, but like, you just say this to your partner. It's not like this massive type of thing. And I remember her saying at one point, love is shown via actions, not words. It's probably very similar to what this girl is talking about. That was probably just her way of saying, you know, go sweep the floor if you actually love me.
Action feels real. You will also say it at work. Chinese employees may do a lot, but self-promotion is often less natural because deep down, the logic is we let action speak, not our language.
I don't think that's the reason. I think that's the cop-out reason. Okay, so I've worked with a lot of Chinese people. I've seen them, you know, in companies and stuff. What I have noticed is most Chinese people are usually very good at their job, but they lack the social skills required in order to survive in a very relationship-dominated world, okay? So, like, I've noticed lots of Chinese people, they basically miss out on promotion opportunities to people who are just very good at maintaining relationships and doing all that type of stuff, yet aren't very good at their jobs. And maybe they think it's because it's, you know, that they should get promoted based on their actions, but I don't think so, because these same type of people I've noticed are just very bad at social interactions overall. I think that is actually a big flaw in the Chinese education system, as they spend so long on memorization of facts and details and obviously characters here, that they actually fail to understand that a big part of life is actually relationships, and they don't focus on this. Like, I've known nearly every Chinese person I've ever met, okay, sucks at just intersocial relationships. Now, I'm not trying to be like racist or anything, like I'm fucking married to a Chinese person. It's just I've noticed Australians overall can talk themselves out of any situation. If they need to be able to fucking build a jet engine to get a job, they will tell you about how they can build a jet engine. They will bullshit their way out of anything, okay? But a Chinese person, nah, unless they know exactly how to do it, they won't do anything about it. You get what I'm trying to say here? I think you do.
Of course, individuals differ. I'm talking about here is a general pattern, how language and culture reinforce each other. Now here is another perspective. Because Chinese is so visual and symbolic, Chinese communication can naturally become artistic. In Chinese aesthetics, we love blank space, leaving things unsaid, and letting the listener feel the meaning. Think of traditional Chinese painting.
And I hate all that stuff, the leaving things unsaid, blank space, because it leads to a lot of like situations where the other person just assumes you understand what they're talking about when you don't.
Empty space is part of the art. That habit can carry into speech. Chinese has plenty of precise vocabulary. It's very rich. But in real conversation, many people prefer abstraction, suggestion, atmosphere. It's not always about saying everything clearly. Sometimes it's about letting meaning exist between the lines. I'm going to talk about something super practical. Why do Chinese shows often have subtitles? Even in YouTube videos, you saw some...
Because the dialects vary so much. I'm pretty sure that's the reason, because like, you know, the dialect that comes from the Chongqing region in China, okay, it sounds completely different to standard Putonghua. And yet, like, you know, a lot of stuff in Taiwan has the exact same accent due to historical, you know, how Taiwan Yeah, okay, just due to historical reasons, okay. Anyway, like, a lot of YouTubers obviously come from Taiwan, and you watch them, and it's just like, if all you know is Putonghua, it's so hard to understand, and then it mixes with the local languages, and it's a mess overall. Like, very, very few people just understand each other straight out. I've heard a similar thing with French. I heard French has pretty much everything subtitled just due to the fact that they have difficulty understanding different dialects. And this kind of annoys me in a lot of ways, but at the same time, it's also amazing because I wish Netflix would have proper fucking subtitles for Chinese stuff, because they don't do that closed caption stuff. Closed caption subtitles are the bomb. They are the best for studying and learning, but when they just do normal subtitles and it doesn't actually match what's being said, that annoys the hell out of me.
Subtitles, even for native speakers. One reason is obvious. Many Chinese characters share the same pronunciation, same sound, different meaning. But here's another reason I have noticed. Chinese education makes us extremely strong at reading symbols. So subtitles don't feel annoying. We already process them fast. And because we rely so much on eyes, we sometimes undertreat the ear. That's why many...
Yeah, no, I've just noticed with certain cultures, again, I think French is one of those ones where everything's subtitled. I could be wrong about this. I remember a friend telling me this. He was like, everything's like subtitled. As soon as you like step slightly outside the accent, they don't understand you anymore. So I think it just comes down to different cultures and how they deal with the situation. I don't know. Like, for example, in English, we never subtitle anything.
Chinese people learning French feel struggling, not only with grammar, but with the shock of suddenly needing a stronger listening system. And if you look at the classic 4 skills, listening, speaking, reading, writing, Chinese learners often excel at reading first because we grew up training our eyes. China also has a famous challenge, which is...
That actually makes me think, if it really is a reading dominant culture first in a lot of ways, which she's implying here with the characters and everything, then as a learner, as much as it would suck, it would make sense then you would focus on the written version of the language as opposed to doing with like what other languages do and they focus on the spoken version. And that makes a lot of sense in some ways, especially when it comes to like the proverbs. So Chinese, okay, English has proverbs and, idioms and all this type of stuff, like it's raining cats and dogs. Like we say that, but we only throw them in every now and then. They will throw them in native conversation, like every single sentence. Everything is an illusion, like she was saying there. They've got them everywhere. And I feel like if you're learning via a primary input method, that makes life very, very difficult. So I've had to like manually study many of them because there was just no other way of picking them up. So maybe learning reading first for a language like Chinese would make sense.
One word with many meanings. Of course, other languages have this too, yes. But Chinese can push it further. For example, in English, you have a problem and question. However, in Chinese, both can be just 问题. And
yeah, I always found that funny that both problem and question was the exact same word in Chinese. I was like, so any question is a problem? Well, I guess it is. You don't understand, but like at the same time, it's an interesting way of thinking about it. And I haven't seen that in any other languages. Any other language question and problem share the same thing?
That reveals a mindset. Whether it's a question or a problem, it's something blocking you, something to solve. This mindset also shows up in daily life. For example, cooking. In China, people might say, heat the oil until it's 90% hot. There is no exact temperature. It's based on experience. That reflects a strong culture which is master and apprentice. It's a culture which called atelier. But knowledge is...
I don't know anything about that. I'm not a big cooker. I haven't really noticed anyone say that. I'm assuming they do.
Task through doing, watching, and repeating. It's a master taught the apprentice. And here is a small example that I love. In spoken Chinese, we say 他 for he, she, it. When you hear 他, you don't know which one it is. You only know by saying the person or saying the object.
And here's an interesting one, okay? Now, this is going to go to auxiliary languages a little bit here. For those who don't know what an auxiliary language is, it's a language that's designed to help communication across cultures and stuff. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because, as she said, Chinese has one word for it, she, and he, okay? And then obviously you've got the possessive forms. Now, for a very, very fluent Chinese speaker speaking English, they may reach native levels speaking, okay? Sound absolutely flawless. You know the one thing they will never get right? They'll always mess it up at some point. You will just find it in a long run-on conversation that they mess up. the pronouns. I find my wife, okay, who basically she's almost indistinguishable from a native at this point, okay? And she'll be telling a story, and halfway through the story, the gender of the person she's talking about just randomly swaps. And I have to stop and ask her. I'm like, because it will default back to, he. And I'll be like, wait, weren't we just talking about Sarah? And she's like, yeah. Oh, sorry, she. Like, I've noticed this with every single Chinese speaker that they always, at some point, they make this mistake. It's like they are unable to, in their mind, keep these two apart, like the genders, because they've always had just one in their native language. And I bring that up with auxiliary languages because I always thought that was a major flaw with Esperanto after learning Chinese, is that it's got a male and a female pronoun, okay? And it kind of annoys me because there is a movement within the Esperanto community which was trying to introduce an extra pronoun for, non-binary people. And it annoyed me because I was like, the logical evolutionary path we should take is to decrease number of pronouns and just go down to it, because that would make it easier for lots of people to learn the language and actually use the language at a fluent level. Now, that's a totally different discussion, but I thought that was always a very it's like that one thing they can never master.
Or understanding the context. Again, it reveals that sound doesn't carry the full identity. The visual and the context do. It's a small detail, but it reveals the same pattern. Chinese is not built primarily to be decoded by sound. It's built to be held by symbols and meaning. If you understand Chinese as visual symbol language, your learning strategy changes. In French dictation, we train, hear it, and spell it. In Chinese, we should train, say it, recognize structure, and then connect the meaning. Even if you don't know the pronunciation yet, characters can still carry meaning. For example,
I would also say the Chinese written language, like the actual written language, can diverge quite a bit from the spoken language. Mainly in like the types of conjunctions and all this type of stuff that they use, but also just the way it's spoken. Like I watch a lot of gaming content in Chinese where like the person will be just speaking normal in gaming and then they'll read something and it's almost they go into teleprompter mode and it's almost like a different register of speaking. It's hard to explain. Like in English, when someone reads a text, they read it like they would speak it, It's the same with, say, Esperanto or something like that. With Chinese, it's like there's a difference there.
Dan means mountain. Chuan means river. Ri means sun. Den means person. This is the charm of Chinese. It doesn't fully depend on sound. It's a language that survived thousands of years because its core is symbolic meaning. Yes, characters evolved. Traditional and simplified characters exist, but the inner engine stayed. When the core stays stable, changes on the surface are like four seasons.
I actually think simplified Chinese is more difficult than traditional Chinese. I blame the Communist Party for that. Okay, the reason being is because for traditional Chinese characters, they look more complex. They would be more difficult to write. But if you're not learning to write, you're just learning to recognize. They're actually easier in a lot of ways to recognize because they're still built from their individual components. While simplified Chinese, they used to be built from 4 or 5 components and then they just like simplified just that one character. So it basically creates an exception to the rule of how all the characters are made. And then there's like tons of exceptions as opposed to traditional Chinese characters. The few that I've learned, I'm like, so it's literally just made up of the components, these 4 components or whatever. It just makes it easier to learn in a lot of ways. Okay, well that looks like we're at the end of the video here. I was expecting her to finish talking or something. Oh wait, no, maybe she has. Anyway, I'll leave a link down in the comment section. That's my thoughts on it. But actually, I don't think she really touched on what makes Chinese difficult for non-natives. And I would say it's just the conceptualization of the world. They don't have a tense system. And because they don't have a tense system, they think about things as in a state of completion, both future and past tense. Things are like either not completed or they're completed or they're in a state of being continuously done. It's like you can't sit there at any point and go, okay, how would I translate this complex English sentence? Because it's like, well, they just wouldn't say it like that at all in any way. You just got to completely reformat the entire sentence, as opposed to like Spanish or Esperanto or something like that, where it's like, oh, okay, well, you can just translate it and you just got to apply all these rules and then it kind of fits. That's what I feel like makes it an actually difficult language. And that on top of all the idioms which exist in literally every single goddamn sentence. Obviously, when I started out, I thought the tones were difficult. I thought the sounds were difficult. Maybe it's all just fucking difficult. What the fuck am I learning this language? Well, I'm married into it, I guess I got to. What the fuck am I learning this language? Anyway, if you guys have enjoyed this video and my random thoughts on the matter, let me know down in the comment section below. And let me know what you find difficult about the languages that you're learning. I think that could be an interesting discussion to see what everyone, like, let us know based on your native language, the language you're learning, and what you found surprisingly difficult about the language you're learning. Anyway, I'll see you all in the next video. Make sure you sub, and yeah.